Hello, welcome to a Little Quilt tutorial video. Um, I got some requests to make some programming videos. I thought this would be an easy one to start with. This is Little Quilt in SML. I actually did this for a project when I was going for my computer science degree, and now that I'm programming, I realize that it's actually really good to start with when you're doing programming languages. Hence why it's in my programming languages folder, and it is very interesting. So I want to go through, for those who don't know how to do it, an SML and print it in Python. So here we are. First, you create two data types. One is the texture, which will be your arcs and bands, and then one being your directions, which will be north, east, southeast, southwest, and northwest. Okay, if you want a square, it's your texture times your direction. So you make a square, right? If you want a row, it's your square list, which I'll get to in a little bit. If you want a quilt, you take the row list down. Now, fun stands for function in SML, and you can go clockwise, which is what I did here, which is the opposite of what you have up in direction. You can turn the square, which will be a function that lets you, turn the square, and you take your clockwise direction in your texture and your square, and clockwise, it turns it, basically, the best way to say. Empty quilt, this isn't too important. You just need this function basically in case something goes wrong. It's a fail. And then we're going to go arcs and bands. This is one of the most important parts. Now, I've listed extra credit because, once again, I did this for university. But your arcs and your bands are how your quilt is made, that you can put in any direction. So if you want your simplest quilt out of text, you're going to need to do it this way. So is takes your arcs and puts them with your bands and puts them together. Turn is just to turn it in one direction. Reduce is to shrink or remove. To turn, your X variable is actually empty here, and here. And X will be whatever is put into so. So here's your arcs. This is what I'm using for mine. And here's your bands. I just did a little, for you have to keep them consistent. So make sure that they're not the same every time. So if this goes one direction, make this go the other. These two can be the same. These two can be the same. It will look funky otherwise, so just keep that in mind. Here's your cat. I forget what it stands for at the moment. Anyway, you can turn it right or you could turn it left. You can unturn, which is just if you turn something and you want to make it go the opposite direction, like back to the way it was. You can pile, which is put one on top of the other. If you want a slice, now, a slice is one section of the little quilt where you take a pile of it and add it to the other section. That's a slice. Here's what I did for quilt 1, which I will get to in a second when I run it. And I'll show you how to run an SML quilt in a second after I go through all the quilt. Here is quilt 2. This one's a lot more confusing. And once I show you how the quilt, I'll show you how it works. But basically, B is quilt 2, band. B stands for band, and A stands for arc. As you can tell, Quilt 1 is just what it prints, and there's no edits to it. As for Quilt 2, well, you'll see in a second. For these quilts, you don't have to make it the way I did. You can make it in any way you want to have it show up any way you want to have it look at. Anyway, mirror 1 is reverse quilt, and mirror 2 is reverse. Reverse is a function just in SML. You don't have to make it. You can just put it in. I think I made it below a version of it, or above. Maybe. I don't think so. I believe I think I did in one of them, but right now I just made it here. If you show row, you can just show the rest. If you show mirror, which is the quilt that you're taking, and it's the opposite, these two are not the same as these two. All right, and you'll get. I'll show you that in a second. Once again, once we visualize it, I can show you how that works. Anyway, show is regular. Show mirror is the opposite. And then you can map these, and you have to make sure that you map them, because if you don't map them, they're not going to come out right. Anyway, so this prints all of them. And this is mirror 1 and mirror 2. And this is a reflection, and this is also a reflection. And you can have them combined to make it look nice. Here's a checkerboard pattern if you want a checkerboard pattern. Once again, these were extra credits. We don't have to go over them. They're a bit advanced, but basically, this takes quilt 1, quilt 2, quilt 3, quilt 4, which are the mirrors, and then the @ sign basically pastes them together, and then you can print them like this. Pinwheel is a rotation of the quilt that's entered. If you need to do that, here it is. You have quilt 1 assigned to quilt. If else, then you have quilt 2 assigned to quilt 2, and mirror 1 to mirror 2. And then you can make a pinwheel of each one. Repeat block will just loop the quilt that you want. And then this is very confusing, and it's not. I'll show you how to do this in its own section. But this is calling my OS looking for a file in the documents, right? And it's looking for a Python file to load after the SML file. That way it can display an image, and I'll show you the image after I'm done. But these are photos, okay? They're not the same. Well, these are photos. They're all labeled different. But each one will show a different type of photo, and then you shrink it down to size in your file directory with the Python program, which I'll go over in a second. And let's do that right now. Before we get into actually running them. So this is for display quilt. You take your system, and then you import the Tinker directory, and then you go to your path, and you find the quilt. So basically, if we go back here into the first section, not that, here, you can see that S is assigned to the photos, right? And then it will run this program that I'm currently showing you from Python to actually present. And when we go here, we can see that it will print the canvas, which is what we're going to call it, a title, and then it'll fill in the photos that we have in the file. If you want it in grayscale, just put G. I don't know why you would do that, but you can. Anyway, so you put them in a row, and you loop it, and then you print it, and you display it here, and that'll end it. We'll show you this in action in a second, but all you really need to know here is this is your title, what will show up on the top. This is your canvas, how long and how wide it's going to be. This is the amount of photos you're going to put in right here. and it will list them, and this section will print into an image. Now your photos are about 144p, so shrink them down to GIFs. GIFs are what's loaded via, in Python you can load via anything, but through SML loading Python, make sure it's a GIF. Highly recommend, since it is the easiest. Just a non-moving GIF, by the way. Okay, so what is this? We saw this earlier. This is cmder. Okay, it is a interesting program that can run SML files without going into your command prompt. And you really want to do this because your command prompt is, one, a security issue using it, and this lets you edit and change. So if you want to load a file, you type SML space, and then I have it right here. You just drag the file that has your code on it. For me, it's this. Or you could just type that into your command line and then hit enter here. It'll run the program. Now, I don't believe you saw that, but we'll get to it in a second. Looking at the top, you can see all of the bands and the directions and how it's working. So, to get into this, this is the code you saw before and how it was put together. Because you can make a data type out of almost anything, but a slice is your bands, and these could be in any order, but this is how I put them. And your quilt one will look bands northwest. So if we go to bands, we go back to here. If we go to bands northwest, it is these two, right? And that's going to be our quilt one, right? So let me go back. Not here, sorry, here. We scroll down to quilt 1, there they are. Bands northwest was right there, and if we go back, check one more time, as you can see, those are the bands northwest. Pretty neat, right? So, here's our original quilt. Here is quilt 1. Well, hold on. My apology. These are validates. We actually gonna go down. Yeah. No. These are them. As you can see, original quilt. Here's a reflection of the quilt using the in reverse command, the mirror function. Here's using reverse instead. As you can tell, it is not the same. These two are not the same. They're actually in opposite directions, as this one. Here. They're actually flipped. Easiest way to tell with using the mirror is these arrows are going this way, where these arrows are going this way. But if you use the reverse command, these arrows are going this way, and now these arrows are on this side. If you use mirror and reverse together, you get the combined effect. These arrows are on this side, but they are also going in this direction instead. Pretty neat. Here's your checkerboard pattern. You have this, then on top, then on top, then on top, and then on top. You can put some pretty nice shapes. I decided to do arrows. I thought they looked cool. Arrow, arrow, arrow. And then it just ends. But yeah, arrow. That's how neat it was. Over here we have rotating it. If you want to rotate it instead of using reverse or mirror, this accomplishes that task pretty well. Here's your repeat block. Repeat block, as we were shown, just repeats the little quilt in whatever direction it goes. And I skipped the pinwheel. I think no, pinwheel's right here. It just flips it. Like it does a puts it on the other side. Now, I want to show you this right here. Don't need to display, but we have the Python. So let's go back to that Python file now that we've seen how that works. So this file is currently running, and it opens an image with, if we go ahead and open, we don't need this file anymore. We'll go ahead and just open the image we need. Oh, hold on. Right here. So this file was opened via the program with a whole bunch of files in it. Now you see where all of these squares are. Let me open this code back up. If you go here and you scroll down right here, each one of these is a photo in where was it? Was it code 2? In here. You see these squares? Each one is actually a photo in the directory to make different images. So each line is put in a different way. And you can color them, make them whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and close this out now. And we can open the next one. So this is the, let me scroll down here. If you can see it in behind, we go down right here. This is the emoji quilt. This is the easiest one to tell. Each emoji is an image, right? But as you can see, the emojis are used multiple times due to the pattern put as Q here. See Q? No, that's, yeah. That's displaying them. Or no, E, I'm sorry. As E. So this whole image is E, and it puts them together and has the Python script right here. Oh, nope. I guess the Python script's closed because this is running. But yeah, this is that. And if we close that out, it's going to run it one more time. And this is what I like to call the quilt of quilts. I took a bunch of quilt images from the internet, shrunk them down, and made a pattern out of quilts. Which you can see in Q. And each one of these are, once again, images that you shrink down, make GIFs, and that's how that works. Well, that is how you make a little quilt in SML and present it in Python. If you want, if you learned anything in this tutorial, I'm glad. I'm super happy. I can keep making some of these programming tutorials if you guys find them interesting. And I might get into more complicated stuff. I want to get into some cryptography programs if that's what would be interesting. I just thought this would be a good first one to look at. And yeah, so go ahead and leave a comment. Just tell me what you think about the program. And if if you do it any other way, I'm always open to feedback. And I always love programming. Actually, it's one of my favorite things to do as a hobby when I'm not playing games and stuff. And taking your opinion in the comments into account into some of my videos would be really nice. And I'm always interested in you guys' thoughts. So, yeah, I'll do these every once in a while. I usually do the news on this channel and do and put Twitch streams, but if people like these, I definitely will do more. So, I've been the Don, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one, everyone.